Coming up on this episode of Bass Hunters, we are diving into the depths of the abyss. All right, home theater fans and fellow bass heads, how's it going? My name is Todd with the home theater forum, avnirvana.com, and you are watching episode number 19 of Bass Hunters. Today, we have a delicious platter of reference bass to serve up in the form of the re-release of The Abyss. Shout out to our founding partner, Kaleidescape, for providing this film for us to analyze. I downloaded this onto my Terra server way back on December 12th, 2023. You can see there it's a 76 gig file. This is exactly why I like working with Kaleidescape, because they give me access to the best audio and video quality out there, oftentimes well in advance of the disc release. So very awesome stuff. And I'd also like to give a shout out to my two other partners in crime. That is Ascendo, the speaker manufacturer from Germany. They make incredibly sweet speakers, and I have their 32-inch infrasonic sub in my home theater room. So if you're interested in some really great gear, check out Ascendo. And if you live here in North America, their North American distribution arm is Sutherland AV Marketing. Want to give a huge shout out to Todd Sutherland over there for helping to set up our arrangement with Ascendo. Todd, thank you so much. And if you live here in North America and you're interested in getting Ascendo into your life, reach out to Sutherland AV Marketing and they'll help you out. All right, so let's call up that scorecard. You can see the first three grades that we're going to talk about right there. The movie, I'm giving it a B minus. It's kind of in that range. It's not my favorite movie, but it has moments that definitely take flight and are a lot of fun, hence the B. The B minus is for a little bit of that 80s cheese that hasn't aged all that well. But all in all, it's a fairly solid film. I think fans of the film are really going to enjoy seeing this in its 4K Dolby Atmos presentation. So you can see the scores down below. A minus for the image quality. Look, this thing looks really, really amazing. Tremendous amounts of detail. It still keeps that texture of the original film intact, such the polar opposite of what we experienced with True Lies. And same goes for the audio. They totally knocked this one out of the park when it comes to what you're hearing on the Dolby Atmos tracks. Lots of these environmental atmospherics. Voices sound so deep and rich. This movie could be a modern release in so many ways when you talk about these AV characteristics. I just am taken aback by how good they have made this 1980s movie sound. And that brings us to the bass. Boom! You can see right there, we're going with a solid A. Folks, this is reference quality bass from start to finish. There is no doubt about it. And I am completely shocked to be saying that. I thought this movie was going to be thin and rather lifeless, and boy, was I wrong. Now, here's a look at the scenes that I used to analyze this movie. So I picked these out after viewing the movie a couple times. You can see they're all my own scene cuts, with the exception of that one second from the bottom. That comes from a scene file that Kaleidescape delivers with the movie. That's something that they selected in-house. So I'm just keeping that one intact as is. The three that are in pink, those are the ones we're primarily going to focus on, but there are a few aspects about this film that I'd like to talk about before we dive into those scenes, because the bass in this movie is so incredibly rich and detailed and deployed with such definition. It's really, really spectacular stuff. Let's take a quick look at some snapshots of spectrograms. I want you to note here that we're topping out at 500 hertz. So this is a little bit more of a zoomed in look at what's going on down in the bass region. And you can see right here, all of this yellow, this is elevated levels of bass. We're landing in that kind of 80 to 90 dB range, but the way that it's deployed is textured and it creates this great sense of depth and weight and vastness to the underwater world. Just really awesome environmental atmospherics that just make the scene really come alive. Now here's another look of the low-end atmospherics that we're dealing with, and this time we are inside of the big rig, and the scene I was just showing you cuts off, I would say right about here. You can see right over there, those are the underwater atmospherics, and right here is what's going on inside of the big rig. You can see it's different. It's a little bit more intense. We have these speckles of red that are popping up in the 20 hertz and 30 hertz range, and the pace of their deployment is quickened just a little bit, but you get this sense of this mechanized world that is kind of cocooned and being wrapped by the water outside. It is awesome. And you know what you're seeing here and over here is going on throughout the entire movie. We also have bass that's associated with machinery like helicopters. Here's two helicopters that are flying into a scene, and this is right about the time they appear, and you can see there the bass is, again, different than what we're experiencing underwater, fairly intense. This right here, this is in the 20 hertz range, 30 hertz range. This is in 50 and up into the 60s. And boy, this just really brings this machinery to life. And here's a look at what it looks like on the FFT analyzer. And you can see right there, we are looking at peak values right here. This is about 55 hertz. It's hitting about 96 dB. Much as the same is going on right behind this picture right here. We're getting close to 96 dB, if not a little bit higher, right around 25 hertz. So some very deep bass associated with these choppers. We also find tons of moments throughout the movie where bass effects are used to match up with action, like a sub attaching to the big rig. And you can see that happening right here. That's a very nice, satisfying thud. And here's another look at that scene using the FFT analyzer to give you a different perspective on how the bass is being deployed. And we'll just stop it right there. You can see here, once again, we have our peak values. This is really in that 40 hertz range, but right across from here, 25 hertz, we're at almost 90 dB right there. Very nice, deep, impactful thud. And it's all these little details that just add to the richness of the audio design. And one more look at the attention to detail throughout this entire movie. So right here, we have this small craft that is towing the big rig, which is appearing right up here behind it. But you can see as that small craft is entering the scene, we are given this low-lying rumble of bass right here. It just adds to the sense of mechanized movement underwater. It's very cool. And then the big guy begins to enter the picture, and bam, you are hit with this massive room-shaking bass. I mean, right here, we are talking 30 hertz, 20 hertz, and this is pretty much reaching up to 100 dB, if not just a tad bit more. But look at that. I mean, that bass right there is associated with that huge machine. And then as you cut inside, you can see that rumble cuts off, and we're back left with these interior atmospherics. Just really, really excellent design. Okay, let's dive into the 3 demo scenes that are pretty much the must-watch demo scenes when it comes to bass in this film. And we're going to start off right at the beginning of the movie. 5 seconds in, this clip starts, and right away, there are those environmental atmospherics that I'm talking about. You can see the sub that is approaching, and we're given that nice bubbly warmth to make us feel like we're underwater with something really large approaching. Let's give that a listen. Okay, now we find ourselves on the interior, and just want to point out right here, this interior hum is throughout this submarine scene, at least while it's audible until the accident happens. But again, this is that environmental bass that we're talking about that just gives you this sense of being in a machine underwater. And here's a screen grab of what's going on inside the sub, just to give you an idea of the makeup of that hum. And right here, we have a tone that's right in that 38 hertz range, approaching 90 dB. And then the other components that are pronounced, you have right here, that's about 58 hertz, and getting close to 80, that's about 78 hertz. So that's pretty much what it looks like.
Still give him a haircut. Helm, come right to 06.
And you can see right there the variation that's going on throughout the scene.
Down 5 degrees, port side clearance 120 feet. Narrow.
And it's interesting to note that as the scene is moving, the pattern might be repeating, but they're varying the intensity, which once again is adding to that nuanced nature of the presentation. Moving forward in the scene, we have the submarine's first contact with the underwater alien life. And you can see what's going on up in the right-hand corner of your screen. So we have it passing by and bam, right there. We're hit with our first big blast of bass, and this is a wonderful introduction to what this movie is capable of. Of course, that sends this submarine into total chaos. We have a lot of activity going on here, which ultimately culminates with the sub crashing into some rocks. So you can see right here, right away, another huge, big bit of impactful bass. This right here, folks, is squarely in the 20 hertz range, so very deep bass, and you can see how red it is. The FFT analyzer says this is actually hitting right up to about 100 dB, so a nice bit of pounding bass right there. And then the scene proceeds to taper off just a little bit, but boy, they really saved the best for last, because as the sub's going down, big bit of damage is done to the submarine, and then we are left with just ocean water pouring into the vessel. And boy, this is a really, really awesome scene. Check it out. And this right here is a great look at the textured nature of the bass that's deployed throughout this scene. And this just plays so well to the ears. And I gotta say, also to your body, because you can definitely feel this as the sub is going down. Okay, so let's move on to our next featured scene. And this is Kaleidescape's own Over the Cliff. It takes place about 43 minutes into the film. Okay, just to set the scene, this right here is a giant crane arm that's fallen from above water down into the depths, and it's attached to a big rig, and it's about to drag them right over the edge of a cliff. And that goes on for quite a bit. But the ultimate result is that we are left with over 5 minutes of low end rumble, and it is so awesome. Let's just fast forward here to a moment where they have a rather big bump that causes a breach. I believe that's it right there. Get a breach, and we have more water rushing in. Okay, so let's pause it right there and just take a look at the mastery of this scene. So right here, this is when the water is first entering that bunk room. You get this tremendous deep bass associated with the water pouring in and pounding down on the floor of the cabin. And as the room begins to fill, just as you would expect, the intensity of it pouring in is still there, but because it's now dumping onto itself, the impact of it is lessened just a little bit, and that's accounted for right there in the sound. And then it goes on to continue to just taper off as the scene goes on. That right there is once again why this is a reference quality bass film. And that scene lasts about 5 minutes from start to finish. So just get your film dialed up to about the 43-minute mark. Push play and sit back and enjoy that bass presentation. It really is special. Okay, so for our last scene, it's BH5 in the script file. We're going all the way to the end of the movie. It's about 2 hours and 10 minutes into the film, and this is what I'm calling the emergence. If you're familiar with The Abyss, you know exactly what this is. This is when this giant alien spacecraft lifts the damaged underwater rig to the top side, and in the process, boy, it is just a blast of bass. This is probably the hardest hitting bass of the movie. So if you're into that total window rattling, room shaking bass moment of a film, well, this is it. Let's just let this one roll. And because it's a longer clip, I'll play it 2 times speed.
Good God, man. Fellas, I'm getting some awful big readings here.
Something's coming up the wall. What is it? Whatever it is, it's major.
You can see right here, it is definitely building.
Something's definitely going on down there. Active is pinging back something really big. It's huge and it's coming right underneath us.
And here it's starting to build up on the surface also. All right, and back over to the FFT analyzer for that scene. And here's just one moment as this craft is popping up above the ocean. You can see right here, we're right about 32 hertz, and that is very close to 100 dB, if not at 100 dB. So very deep and super powerful. Let me just actually rewind this to where it's just about at the surface, and you can give it a watch. And throughout the scene, you can see there isn't a tremendous amount of pronounced activity going on beneath the 20 hertz mark, which is right here. So the vast majority of what we're hearing is occurring really, I would say, from 25 hertz and up. There's a little bit of activity that's notable down below 25 hertz, but really this movie is operating from about here on up into the spectrum. All right, so those are 3 sure shot demo scenes that are going to play really well on your system at home. So definitely go and dial those up. Speaking of systems at home, that leaves us with our final question. What do you need at home to get the most out of this movie when it comes to bass? So folks out there, if you have a sound bar and that small wireless sub, or if you have underpowered subs or subs that roll off around 35 hertz, you're going to be missing something. There's quite a bit of information as I showed you, peaking in that 25 hertz and 35 hertz territory. So you're going to miss out on a little bit, but there's enough going on above that that I don't think all is completely lost. Of course, if you have a really great subsystem in your home theater room, it's going to eat this stuff up and you're going to love it. I think you're really going to be surprised at how amazing a movie can sound coming out of the 1980s. A lot of times, these older films, when they're re-released, they just come out sounding thin and old. And this one doesn't sound thin and old at all. As I said before, it really could be a movie that's made in modern times. All right, folks, that's all I have for you right now. Please come over and hang out with us at the forum at avnirvana.com. Otherwise, I'll see you next time on Bass Hunters.